A lot of people are saying this story is untrue, but it's absolutely a fact and has recently come to light that Canadian KFC locations have secretly switched to halal food methods, angering some Canadians. This is a controversial topic, so I'm going to do my best today to remain neutral, so keep those rage comments down to a minimum. We've covered KFC here on the channel many times before, a company with a long history of serving Kentucky Fried Chicken, which is a name that evokes images of Southern hospitality. Harlan Sanders, he discovered his secret recipe way back in 1930 and sold it to restaurants. Did fairly well, but due to economic conditions, at age 65, Sanders was left with only some savings and $105 a month in Social Security. The Colonel then drove around well into his 60s, often sleeping in his car, pitching his recipes to restaurants around the country. Well, he worked hard, things took off, and they started opening hundreds of restaurants all around the world. Long story short, in 1964, at age 73, Colonel Sanders sold the entire Kentucky Fried Chicken Corporation for only $2 million, but he would remain the face of KFC for many years to come. Now, what most people don't know, and what is important to this story, is after selling his company, the Colonel moved here to Canada, and he remained in this humble home in Mississauga, Ontario, just outside of Toronto, for the rest of his remaining days. Now, the U.S. tax system was actually one of the reasons Colonel Sanders left the USA and came to Canada, probably not a decision that he would make today. And after changing hands, the Colonel opined he was not a fan of their new food, stating this. Point being made here, there is a lot of Canadian history behind KFC, and if you're old enough to remember Scott's Chicken Villa, that was a thing for a while. So it came as a shock, despite very little media coverage, that KFC in Canada, specifically Ontario, had moved to halal chicken at most locations and completely eliminated any pork products or byproducts in keeping with halal practices. Apparently, KFC advised its franchisees of this decision back in May, but there has been very little media coverage. Now, halal, if you don't know, in the context of food anyway, is that which is permissible to eat by Muslims according to Islamic law. Now, this excludes certain food like alcohol and pork, and also requires specific methods when turning animals into food, we'll say. Now, proponents of halal meat suggests it is a more humane way of treating animals, as a very sharp knife must be used while reciting the name of Allah to avoid undue suffering, and the animal must then be hung upside down and allowed to bleed dry. Allowed, probably not the best word to use here. Now, traditional animal harvesting methods suggest that the animal should be first stunned, so it is mostly unconscious when those things happen. Now, both sides claim their way is the most acceptable. Now, in this argument, I think the vegans probably win, to be honest, but that's another story. Now, needless to say, many Canadians went to X to voice their disapproval on what they see as placating a minority group, as less than 5% of Canadians are actually Muslims, and began suggesting a boycott of KFC. Now, to really understand this pushback here in Canada, you need to understand the climate that we are in right now. There's a growing number of people who feel that different cultures are not really integrating with the Canadian way, whatever that might be. Too many people from too many other countries have been allowed to enter Canada, and some Canadians feel that their traditional way of life is being infringed upon. There's been an influx of millions of immigrants, many of them, of course, hardworking people, but a country that was once only 30 million, smaller than California is today, grew very quickly to 42 million people. housing shortages and ridiculous prices for real estate followed. We've covered that real estate scenario here on the channel as well as an enormous strain on health services here in the country, with multi-year-long waits to see a family doctor not being uncommon, and average waits in emergency rooms 5 hours or more in some provinces. Now, for many years, anyone here in the country who attempted to question the logic of the volume of immigration was censored or canceled and deemed overall just a horrible person. None of the mainstream media covered the topic until very recently, but some Canadians who are now allowed to voice their disapproval have become very vocal and pointed out that many companies in certain food sectors, including the Canadian bastion of Tim Hortons, has been taken over in many enclaves by immigrants, and jobs once available to original Canadians, no, not those, the other original Canadians, were now allegedly going mostly to people of Indian descent, who allegedly mostly hire, of course, Indian workers. Now, this has been a growing concern for many Canadians over a period of time. So for many people, that KFC decision comes at a time in Canada when immigration and diversity are not viewed as favorably as they once were by a growing number of people. The fact that Canadian media and government attempted to quash even modest conversation on this or any other matter that did not reflect its highly liberal values has not helped at all. The biggest question, I think, is in a country that has over 450 distinct ethnic and cultural origins that include Sikh and Hindu, which avoid eating meat from halal practices in animals, which many in those faiths consider as barbaric. Buddhists, they primarily follow a plant-based diet. There's about 400,000 Jewish people here in Canada who typically follow a kosher diet. Christians, they still represent over 50%, and atheists 35%. So people are wondering why the switch was made to halal. Now, when you have a multicultural country as we do, the decision must inevitably come which group will be catered to, which will invariably alienate other groups. Now, KFC cited the reasons for this change as being committed to providing diverse and inclusive options to their customers. But then why is KFC not kosher? Why is it not vegetarian? Why does it not serve colcannon for the Irish, kimchi for the Koreans, and steak pies and sticky toffee to the Brits? Now, I'm only speculating here, but KFC and parent company Yum Brands have been boycotted and called out for the support of Israeli startup companies through financial support. So the move to halal is that, and I'm again speculating, an attempt to placate Muslims who have been vocal in their criticism of the support to Israel. Now, I personally haven't eaten at KFC since Toonie Tuesday was a thing, so this does not affect me at all. But in my opinion, this decision may have been made at an inopportune time. We are very polarized as Canadians, and as this story becomes more widely known, it could have KFC seeing a loss of sales through these boycotts. Many Canadians feel that they've been silenced from expressing their views. That's created a pressure cooker of sorts. And if KFC becomes a direct target of that anger, sales may go down. Now, the reality of the world is if we try and please everyone, we actually end up pleasing no one. And one thing is for sure, we live in interesting times. Please like and subscribe. We'll keep you apprised of this story and have more franchising content.